Welcome to Gospel Diaries, a platform that offers a unique avenue for artists to share their stories, express their thoughts, emotions, and personal journeys. Today we're in Los Angeles with Eric Reed. What's going on, Gospel Diaries, y'all? Listen here, would you all look at this beautiful atmosphere? It is wonderful. I feel wonderful. I'm in LA, and would you look to my right, he's going to be on your left. I'm with the incomparable jazz pianist. I mean, he is an amazing, amazing musician. I'm so glad to be sitting here, and I'm talking about none other than Mr. Eric Reed. Man, please shake your hand.
Of course. Of course.
Blessings on blessings.
You too, sir.
How you doing?
I'm wonderful.
That's good. Now. Is phenomenal. And when you hear this man play, and we got a special guest sitting behind us in the studio, and we're talking about the iconic Mr. Henry Jackson, but he's gonna do some hymns. But when you hear him play, you're gonna know why we brought him to Gospel Diaries. He has a history in the church, and he also teaches music. He's a composer, and he is an artist. So we're here to delve into his Gospel Diaries. Is that okay with you?
That's fine with me.
So how you been, man?
I've been good, man. I've been watching your stuff and
Really?
watching all the wonderful footage you've been getting, documenting our history with Dorothy Norwood, and I think it's just fantastic to do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You've been on the battlefield. Vanessa Bell, that's recent. I appreciate that. You've been on the battlefield for some time now.
A little bit. I ain't tired yet.
You ain't tired? Listen, I was, of course, doing my research, and I found a CD, and I said, man, he just missed those LP, the vinyl days.
And I got a new one coming out though.
You got
it's coming out on LP, yeah.
Okay.
Finally.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Thank God for that.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, the year was 1990 that it was released, and we're talking about Eric Reed, dedication to Art Blakey.
Soldiers hymn.
I'm like, oh my God, this man has really been at it. And I think, how old were you? 20, 21?
1920, somewhere in there.
Jesus, man, you're true to it.
Yeah, for real.
But we have to go get the preliminaries out of the way. So I did some reading, and I found out that you are, I think you don't like to hear a PK. You don't.
I'm a PK,
but you are PK.
I'm a PK.
So let's talk about your humble beginnings.
Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, born and raised, not too far from Will Smith.
Okay.
In West Philadelphia, in a neighborhood called Winfield, and row homes. The homes were all right next to each other. We all shared a wall. Stoops. Summertime, everybody's out in the street. This is before the internet, before cell phones. So my childhood is very special to me, anyway. But I remember just a very different time of there just being music everywhere. It's kind of like that song. What was it? Martha Reeves and the Vandellas dancing in the street. It was music everywhere, Philadelphia, PA, and there literally was music all the time. It was just a rich, soulful, musical town. So church choirs, Gabriel Hardiman, and Alex Ingram and Stephen Ford and Rosie Wallace, and the Davis sisters and the Ward singers. And my dad, ran with all those folks.
Really?
Literally ran.
What was your dad's name?
My father's name was David Reed.
David Reed. Okay.
And he sang with a local quartet called the Bay State Singers.
Okay.
And they didn't really get much acclaim. They didn't really get out there. They were all, family guys working. So, well, a lot of the quartet guys were. But this particular group, they just mainly stayed local. They made a couple of little 45s, but didn't really get to any international acclaim. But my dad was a pretty, rocking, quartet singer. He loved to sing.
So love for jazz.
My aunt and my uncle on my mom's side just gave me some records. They knew I played piano at an early age. I was 2. And they said, well, let's just, get him some records to listen to. So they got me records of all different kinds of piano players. I had a record by Liberace playing Christmas music. I had classical music, a guy named Raymond Lowenthal playing Beethoven, Ramsey Lewis, playing the blues, Chicago. Sounds of Christmas. And one of those records was a record by Horace Silver, another one by Art Blakey. So they just gave me a bunch of stuff. So you throw it up against the wall, you see what sticks. And the jazz stuff was what really popped out at me, especially when I heard Ramsey Lewis and Horace Silver, because the way they played sounded a lot like what I heard in the church. And when I heard Art Blakey, he had a piano player after Horace Silver. He had a piano player also from Philadelphia named Bobby Timmons. And Bobby Timmons was raised in the church. And I believe his father was a pastor. A lot of jazz piano players, Nat King Cole, Fats Waller, John Coltrane, come from parents and grandparents who are pastors. And so Bobby Timmons had a song. So that's right from the church. That's a jazz song. It's called Moaning, and it's one of the most popular jazz songs in the repertoire. But Bobby Timmons found a way to combine the sound of the church and the sound of jazz music.
I love it.
First of all, that song is 1958, so it's almost 70 years old, and it's heard so often. It's kind of like, if you hear it enough, you can just retain it. If you hear your ABCs enough, you hear words enough, you hear languages enough, you just hear it over and over, and you just retain it that way. So retaining musical ideas or musical melodies it's another language. I didn't think about how the idea of supporting yourself, making a living for yourself, is not something that really occurred, at least to me, until it was time for me to do it. I was like, well, I got to figure something out, because I went to Cal State Northridge for about a year, and just to get the degree, get my parents off my back. But I just didn't want to go that route. I didn't want to finish. I wanted to be on the road playing music. I had no idea how I was going to support myself. I didn't really care, because my main concern was not being wealthy as much as it was just being able to just make enough to pay my bills. And the bills that I was paying in 1989 are very different than the bills I'm paying in 2025, and very different than the bills that our parents and grandparents paid. I mean, but in 1989, being able to make a living as a jazz musician was relatively easy, even if you weren't that good. And in 1989, my stuff was kind of sad. I was good enough to be working. So a lot of people gave me some opportunities to work. I mean, I met Calvin Bernard Roan
early on
when I was about 15 or 16 years old. Yeah, I was still playing in church, but I still always had that jazzy thing. So it didn't occur to me about playing, making a living until, like I said, I had to do it. But from the time I was 2, 10, 15, jazz was always what I wanted to do. I said, I got to do this. My heart is really all about it. And the rest of the stuff kind of just fell into place. I didn't really pursue it like trying to find opportunities to. Things just happened. A lot of things just fell in my lap.
Yeah.
Well, certainly the music of my parents. They love the Davis Sisters. They love the Davis Sisters. And Curtis Dublin, just a phenomenal piano player. He basically just played in C and G, but what he played was just really out of sight, and very jazz influenced, very blues influenced. And then, of course, Pee Wee, Herbert Picard, who played for the Harmonettes and for James Cleveland and so many people, that Chicago sound. Phenomenal piano player. James Cleveland was a wonderful piano player. People don't really give him credit for the piano. He was a fantastic piano player, a really, really big, robust sound. And I think that happens with a lot of children. If their parents are playing their music in the house, the children will hear it. Some children gravitate towards it, and some children repel it. I happen to gravitate towards it. And then, of course, the music that my siblings were listening to, Motown, and my father was listening to quartet music and choirs. So I heard a lot of music in our house. So I was just a musical person. So I just absorbed everything. And I liked everything I heard, in addition to the contemporary sounds of my generation. So in my period of the 1970s and early 80s, I would have heard people like Myrna Summers, Walter and Evan Hawkins, of course, Andre Crouch, Henry Jackson. These are tremendous influences on me. James Cleveland was still very active in the 70s and 80s. by the time groups like the Davis Sisters and the Ward Singers were starting to kind of just kind of fade out of out of being in vogue. But as long as there were records around and I could hear it, I loved it all. I loved it all. But I would say that the Hawkins family was probably the music of my generation. They were quite contemporary, looking in a different direction. Andre Crouch, obviously, as well. They had brought in more so-called commercial influences into gospel music.
Wow. Hi, Eric Maurice Clark here, sharing ways that you can support Gospel Diaries. First and foremost, thank you so much for your interest in this platform, and let's support every artist that appears on this program. All right, so we do have a magazine. It's entitled The Gospel Music Gazette, and you can obtain a copy by going to ericmauriceclark.com. That will help us share and help spread our purpose here at Gospel Diaries. Also, you can donate by way of Zelle, Cash App, or traditionally through mail. We do appreciate you, and as I always say, love on someone and you will change your life. Bye.
So a little bit of jazz, just a little bit, because I could go all the way in there. But I try to keep it close to the original intentions. That's pretty safe, fairly conservative, but it doesn't have to be stoic and up. It still be beautiful and lyrical. It's already a beautiful melody, and just to try it. Just a little bit, not too much. Like I said, I can go all the way in there, but I think it's important for me as someone who really enjoys listening to melodies being sung and played. I'm always going to stay as close to the melody or as being melodic and lyrical as possible, and which takes me to another arena, which you didn't ask about, but I'm going to talk about anyway. Sort of the difference or the dividing line between certain types of gospel music, and you hear a lot of people make comments about the way gospel music is sung, and you hear a lot of gospel singers do a lot of melismas, a lot of runs, just all over the place. Like, man, just sing the melody. It doesn't have to be straight, But like when you listen to a group like the Hawkins family, the way they sung melodies and the way they breathed, just you had to have endurance to sing with that family. And the way they sing, like Edwin or Tremaine. Tremaine didn't do a whole lot of runs. Lynette could do some runs, but she didn't overdo it. But when you listen to their music, you hear such a melodic base, such a melodic foundation. And now most of the gospel music that I hear now, all the singers are doing all these runs, and everybody's trying to, like, you know, outdo the Clark sisters. They're trying to outdo Daryl Coley. They're trying to outdo Vanessa Bell Armstrong. But when you listen to Daryl Coley sing, Oh Emmanuel, O come Emmanuel. When you hear him sing O come Emmanuel, he sings it, and he sings it kind of straight, and then he puts a little run in here and there, and then he goes full ham. Or if you listen to Vanessa Bell Armstrong sing Faith that Conquers, she doesn't start right in with a whole bunch of runs, you know. But a lot of singers, like, the first thing they sing, it's just like 35 runs in a bar. It's like, man, just sing the melody. Just try. But you know what? The issue is a lot of them can't, because what I have noticed is that with so many contemporary gospel singers, what they don't have is quality of tone. They got the chops. They can run you all around the globe. But you ask them to sing something like Amazing Grace. Just sing the melody to Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. They can't resist it, because it's just embedded in them to just start doing runs. It's a lack of paying attention to space, and a lack of being able to just carry a melody and tell a story. A lot of these gospel singers today don't know how to tell stories.
But behavior is learned.
Of course it is.
And I think that a lot of times that these people, these artists, that they follow suit because this is what they are. This is the influence that's in the air.
Sure.
So the only way I think to change that, or to give another option, is to flood the streamways with more melodic music.
Well, we need to have more of those melodic singers be more prevalent. They need to be like singers like Henry Jackson, Calvin Rome. I'm trying to think of some singers who are around that still sing, you know, that just sing melodies straight, and give workshops, teaching these singers how to breathe, how to deliver a message, and not make it all about you and all the runs you can do. Because listen, who doesn't want to see the audience, you know? And but it's always been like that, though. Even in Mahalia Jackson's day, you know, if Mahalia Jackson didn't shake her butt, you know, if she didn't do whatever it was, the audience would sit on their hands. They wouldn't give up nothing. And it's a weird thing about church audiences. They want you to do backflips and sweat and roll around all over the floor before they give you anything, because they want to be entertained. You know, absolutely. And every group or every singer had their little thing. Like if you listen to that Shrine Auditorium concert from 1955, James Cleveland sings "What Kind of Man Is This" with the Caravans, and James was a master entertainer. I mean, there was no greater entertainer. The Ward singers, but you know, aside from them, you know, Cleve, he knew how to get you. So if, like, you know, they're singing, what kind of man is this? Walks like Jesus. What kind of man is this? Looks like Jesus. What kind of man? And he goes, look at him. You know, and everybody goes crazy.
On that note, we can't speed past something like that. Listen, I sat there and watched James and Ray Charles. I don't know if you've seen that. Could you play a little bluesy version of that song?
Wasn't it What Kind of Man Is This?
Yes, can you play? Must be the
So gospel and gospel music and the blues and jazz, they're siblings. You know, you don't have gospel music, at least the way Thomas Dorsey synthesized those sounds without the blues. Now, gospel music didn't always have the blues influence. Prior to that, you had songs that were called the gospel pearls. You know, Fannie J. Crosby and William Doane. You know, Jesus Loves Me, This I Know. What a Fellowship. What is it? Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. You know, you had these songs that were hymns, but they weren't really like the English hymns. So if you think of a hymn like A Mighty Force Is Our God. You fast forward a couple hundred years to the 1870s, 1880s, and in America, the hymns, a lot of these American songwriters, it takes on a different sound altogether because now they're adding choruses. So take something like "Oh Happy Day," and not the Evan Hawkins one, the hymn. It was written in 1755 as a poem. So the poem, and then later on, what's his name? Rimbaud, William Rimbaud, almost 100 years later, adds a chorus. So. And then here's the chorus. That's not in there.
You couldn't resist.
I couldn't resist. But here I am talking stuff about them gospel singers.
But you know, listen, since we're here, because we got to take a break. Hymns. A lot of people don't realize that, first of all, if we go to the origins of hymn, we'll get to the Gregorian chant, which is the Catholic chant. But roughly starting with the Protestant Reformation, when people like Martin Luther, Calvinists, and things of that sort, they were writing these songs to a deity that was supposedly to cover what they believe. You know, you spoke of Mighty Fortress and different songs that Martin Luther sang. But when you get into the 18th century and you find people like Fannie Crosby and things of that sort, these hymns were actually
and the
poems.
Wesley brothers,
Yes.
Charles Wesley.
They were poems. Isaac Watts. And a lot of people don't know that. I forget what was it called? Hymn. I forget. My mind, it slips me right now. But the poems were often accompanied by famous tunes of that particular day. And you found
well, that's how Take My Hand, Precious Lord was formed, because that's the melody to Must Jesus Bear the Cross Alone.
Hi, Eric Maurice Clark here, sharing ways that you can support Gospel Diaries. First and foremost, thank you so much for your interest in this platform, and let's support every artist that appears on this program. All right, so we do have a magazine. It's entitled The Gospel Music Gazette, and you can obtain a copy by going to ericmaurice.clark.com. That will help us share and help spread our purpose here at Gospel Diaries. Also, you can donate by way of Zelle, Cash App, or traditionally through mail. We do appreciate you, and as I always say, love on someone and you will change your life. Bye. I said what?
All day long.
Welcome back to Gospel Diaries. Listen, we're still here with the one and only Mr. Eric Reed. Can I shake your hand one more time?
Absolutely.
Man, somebody that played the piano like that, I want to shake your hand as many times as I can. I've been wanting to play all my life. I mean, I can pack at it, but I can't make no sense.
Sometimes that's how I feel. I'm like, man, I've been doing this over 50 years, and I'm like, man, sometimes I just feel like, man, I can't play at all.
Talk about this. So, as an inspiring musician as a child, what are some of the difficulties or the struggles that you had to work through to become an accomplished pianist?
Still working through them. The idea of staying motivated and inspired to create, it's very difficult to do, especially in this current political climate we're living in now. The past couple of months have been very, very difficult. In addition to the other vicissitudes of life, just dealing with, friends and family, stuff that has nothing to do with politics, just my own, personal goings on. And I know Thomas Dorsey, when his wife and baby died, his first wife and baby died, and he locked himself in a room and he was suicidal. He locked himself in the room for a week, and then he came out of the room with "Take My Hand, Precious Lord." I need a song like that. I'd love to have a total praise. Richard Smallwood saying things like, a song that's written from such deep despair, and then you come up with a masterpiece that just blesses millions of people for decades. But one of the challenges is just finding the time to get to the instrument, to be able to just sit, which is why I love this practice space, because it's remote, it's secluded, and I can be in here pretty much anytime I want to be. And I can actually just sit with me, the piano, and the sound of the room. The beauty of this, and this is a gorgeous instrument, I can just sit with the beauty of the instrument and the beauty of my sound, just sit here and just really appreciate what I've been able to do and how I've been able to be sustained by it. But then the other part of it is sometimes I don't feel like doing it. Sometimes it's because I have standards and values that, being the type of person I am, I need to be surrounded by other people who share those values. They don't have to be exactly the same, but they have to be high. And I want to work with people whose standards are high, who want to do better, who don't want to be mediocre. And that's hard to find because the average person is pretty mediocre.
Yeah, but when this come on, you're gonna see me driving here. Listen, y'all, I drove. I got here. I got in the car early.
About 9 o'clock our time.
Yeah. And I drove here just to sit with this guy. Right?
And he said, I'm coming here. And when you said that, like, that put the pressure on me. I went, cut my hair, got my face all that. So I need to get, but that hyped me up. That inspired me because I had a pretty rough weekend.
Oh wow.
But you saying, hey, I'm coming to LA. I said, all right, you know what? Boom. That's gonna be the thing that I need to kind of get, because you can't do it by yourself. Like I said, even though the vision is yours, nobody's gonna work as hard as you do. But this is not something that we can do alone. And there's a song that my father taught me, that Sam Cooke and the Soul Stirrers used to sing. This is a mean old world to live in all by yourself. This is a mean old world in which to live alone, without a kindred, something, or even a home. And we don't have to, but I tend to isolate, and I have to stop doing that. People always said, Eric, why do you go off by yourself? Because sometimes I just don't feel like being bothered. If I just sit with the piano, me and Mr. Yamaha, I'm good. But I got to learn to let folks in. I'm going to be intentionally and proactively discreet. Because that's also necessary. I don't want anything I say to ever come off as being hateful towards the church and church people. But I do have an issue with church culture. The cultures are made up of people. They're not separate. My issue is with the lack of critical thinking. Basically, people are just like, the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. I actually saw a pastor on TikTok, and it just deflated my whole sense of spirituality at that moment, because I've been deconstructing for the past 10 years or so. And this pastor said, if it's written in the Bible, that 2 + 2 is 6, I'll find something in the Bible to make that true. He said that with his whole chest.
Delusion.
I said, I was kind of outdone after that. I didn't know, and it's what I had been thinking all along, that so many people in the church who really have beautiful spirits, but their brain, they shut their brain off when it comes to religion. They have Christ in their heart, but they don't have the scriptures in their head to be able to exegete and dissect and say, this word was mistranslated. This was added. This wasn't even in there. This is made up. Why do we have 42,000 Christian denominations all across the globe? Why do we have Kojic and Baptist? I thought it was just one faith, one Lord, one God. Don't all Christians believe the same thing? Apparently they don't.
And you know what's amazing? I'm glad. I don't know why you went there, but
because you told me to.
You know, if you can Google this, like even the Roman Empire, they did not adopt Christianity until the fall of Rome, and Jesus had been deceased for at least 200-300 years.
Sure.
And then they finally accept. And it takes over at least 10 decades for somebody to say, I'm going to be a renegade, I'm going to be unorthodox and go against the grain like Martin Luther. But I'm sure with others, he gets the credit. But I'm sure there were others that creates this Protestant religion that we believe in today. We didn't, if you think about it, before Martin Luther, we was going by solely what Catholicism was, what the Catholic Church said do, period.
But you keep saying we, you're talking about Christians, but Africans.
Well, Africans, we were different.
We had our own
Definitely had our own religion. But I'm referring to, I didn't want to go there, but
it's the truth.
The enslaved years, during the antebellum years, we was indoctrinated with this inferior type of behavior or this theology during the antebellum years.
A specific Bible during those antebellum years that was called the slave Bible.
Absolutely.
So they took certain scriptures out. Why would you take that out? It was illegal on pain of death or punishment of death to teach Black people how to read. Well, why didn't you want us reading? What is it you didn't want us to know?
It was amazing. You said this. You said that the pastor said that if the Bible says 2 + 2 is 6, he would
look for a reason in the Bible to make it so.
And when you think about
even though we all know 2 + 2 is 4 all over the world,
they do that
all the time because it fits a narrative that allows them to continue to control and oppress. So when it comes to chattel slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, again, you'll get white supremacists, Christian nationalists who will always say, well, it was a different slavery that was from the Bible. Or as Paul says, well, the Bible says to obey the government. It's like they're taking all these things completely out of context and again, just using it as a means of control. And then they never want to go back to, they always want to go to Leviticus, where in 1822, where they want to condemn homosexuality, which is not what that was talking about. That was actually talking about pedophilia. But then you talk about crossing fabrics and not eating certain things. They ignore, they don't even acknowledge it. They just want to condemn the things that they find repulsive, the things that they have problems with. And they never, pull the log out of their own eye. Mind your business. End of story. Just mind your business. You do you, I'll do me. And we don't have to believe the same thing. We really don't. Like literally, this world is full of 8 billion people who all believe a bunch of different things, but they gotta control.
And what's crazy is prior to Christianity, there were religions that existed before Christianity. Absolutely. And people don't realize that. But
they don't care.
You know what? They really don't care because they've been brainwashed. I hope that's the right word to use.
Yeah, it is.
But on that note, we'll be right back. We're going to get into his career. Tell the people we'll be back.
We'll be right back.
Hi, Eric Maurice Clark here, sharing ways that you can support Gospel Diaries. First and foremost, thank you so much for your interest in this platform, and let's support every artist that appears on this program. All right, so we do have a magazine. It's entitled The Gospel Music Gazette, and you can obtain a copy by going to ericmaurice.com. That will help us share and help spread our purpose here at Gospel Diaries. Also, you can donate by way of Zelle, Cash App, or traditionally through mail. We do appreciate you, and as I always say, love on someone and you will change your life. Bye. All right, welcome back to Gospel Diaries. All right, Dr. Reed. It's okay if I call you Dr. Reed?
Of course it is.
Listen, you
Let's
are
manifest
accomplished.
it.
Let me ask you this.
I'm an accomplice.
You were actually in Tennessee.
Yes.
Okay, what were you doing in Tennessee?
I was teaching at the University of Tennessee in
How did
Knoxville.
that come about?
I went there 2019. I was asked about my interest in teaching, and I had never done that before full time. And I wanted to try my hand at it. I said, sure, why not? I'll give it a shot. And so I went down there for 4 years. This was right before the pandemic, so the timing was perfect. And I lived in Knoxville, and it was a wonderful 4 years. I grew, I found myself. I was like, nobody knows me here. I can actually just be me. I can just go ahead and do this. And the truth is, I always could have been myself, but I wasn't ready for that. And I didn't think other people were ready.
When you say yourself,
I can be my authentic queer self.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Growing up in church, you know how this is like, listen, you don't have gospel music without queer people. It's the truth is the truth. And people, they can talk the talk, and they do like this with one eye, and then,
Did you always know?
Always.
Okay.
Always knew. Didn't have a name for it, but I always knew.
And so what did you think about the ones that were partaking in the music industry that you knew about their lives?
I just figured I'd wind up like them, not ever saying anything. I mean, it wasn't like, it was kind of like within, certain circles, it was just an understood, unofficially known thing. It just wasn't discussed, and it was so much bigger of a deal than it was for the straight men and women who were out hoeing in the street, because it was mostly the quartet singers. And so we all knew about them, but it was kind of like just expected. But when it came to queer folks, all of a sudden, that's worse. It's like, but y'all don't understand. You don't have gospel music without us. You don't have choir directors. You don't have tenor sections. You don't have piano players and organists, songwriters, lead singers without us. And that's not all. I'm not saying all the men, all the women, but by and large.
Oh yeah. Now, you
don't have it without us. You just don't.
Would you say, okay, what pushed you into the secular genre,
Jazz pulled me.
It pulled you.
It
was nothing about sexuality or anything?
No, not at all. Because the jazz world was just as homophobic.
Okay.
But I didn't really see opportunities in gospel music that were going to take me to where I wanted to go. Jazz gives you a sense of musical freedom, especially in terms of improvisation. Gospel music is largely about singing. So there was no real avenue for me to play gospel music unless I was playing behind somebody else. Now, if I had met Henry Jackson when I was in my mid to late teens, that might have been a different story. I might have wound up becoming his piano player. Calvin Rohn was not touring as much. He was also working with James Cleveland. Who I really wanted to work with was the Hawkins family, but I didn't meet them until much later, until like the late 90s. So I wound up in jazz largely in part because that was just the atmosphere, that was the culture that seemed to be more feasible for me in terms of opportunities for me to grow musically. I was in a non-denominational church. I started off in a holiness church in Philadelphia. Had I stayed in Philly, I probably would have wound up going into a career in gospel music, but we moved and came to LA. And the gospel music in Los Angeles is very, very different than the gospel music in Philly and Chicago, Detroit, or the South or anything like that, or the Midwest. But in LA, LA had all these wonderful musicians, James Cleveland. I said, well, let me try to go over there with James over to Cornerstone. But I had a lot of people who were like, no, you don't need to be over in that environment for, any number of reasons. So I think there was, again, the universe was kind of like, looking out for me in a certain kind of way. I was very impressionable, very impressionable as a teenager, and easily pliable, a people pleaser, and I might not be here today had I made different decisions.
So how did you find, or how did you land your first record deal? And if you don't mind, let's talk about the details. Well, in a sense, what you can share, because a lot of people, especially musicians and artists, they have no clue, very unsophisticated as it relates to the recording industry. So let's talk about how you were introduced to that first record deal.
I had been working around town, around Los Angeles, with people like Teddy Edwards and Clara Bryant and Buddy Collette and Red Calendar, all these older guys who are now gone now, older men and women who are now gone. And I had been working with Freddie Hubbard and Joe Henderson, and also with Wynton Marsalis. So after my name getting out there for a while, there was a guy out of the UK, Alan Bates, who was in charge of Candid Records. And he just hit me up and said, "Hey, I'd like to record you."
Really?
Yeah. I said, "Okay, sure." So it's just a one-off, just one record, no contract for multi, recordings for a series, more than one record. So I said, "Okay," and I think he might have paid me $3,000, something. I have no idea. And I called the musicians, went in there, and with a couple things. I didn't really have much of a clue with regard to how records were made. Where the pianos, getting the piano tuned, what kind of studio, all that kind of stuff. It was just, everything was kind of just set up for me. So I just went and just played. We were done inside of 6 hours. So
you composed? Did you compose all of the songs on that?
Some of them.
Okay, so I must ask you this question because I'm dying to know this answer. So when you compose a song, you write it on the piano. So how do you gel with the other band members? Like, how do they interpret what you can compose?
I'll just start playing, and they'll feel the groove of where I am. And depending on the song, some things are very arranged, some things are very detailed. But I did a recording of "Wade in the Water" for a record I did called "It's All Right to Swing." And
that's your second album.
I think so.
That was
yes.
Your second album.
And so I wanted to do this version of "Wade in the Water," and I didn't feel I needed to tell the drummer and bassist what to do. They'd figure it out. So I just started playing it. So once I played through that a few times, the drummer just started. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
The drummer, Gregory Hutchinson, is it still okay? The drummer, Gregory Hutchinson, just started playing this groove. And the bass. I didn't tell them to do that. I didn't need to. I didn't really know what to tell them. And then sometimes I have very specific things that I want bassists and drummers to do. But for the most part, I let them do their own thing. I don't like being micromanaged, and I don't like micromanaging others.
So when you compose a song, do you remember the exact way that you play it? And if you was to perform it, you would play it the same way?
No, it's always going to be something different.
So it's improv.
Yeah. I'll play. I'm trying to think of something that I've written.
That's interesting.
And I can do that because it's not classical music. It doesn't need to be exact every single time.
I love it.
It has to be that way because that's the way Bach wrote it. But if I was going to kind of change it up, you can change it up, and it's like then it's no longer box music.
Mhm.
It's something else that you've improvised over,
Mhm.
right? The idea of classical music is to interpret the notes that are written.
Mhm.
The idea in jazz is to improvise
Mhm.
on the notes that are written. So if I'm going to play something like Duke Ellington, Wood Indigo. So Duke didn't write all of that. That's me adding my inflections to the melody. But if I just played it as written,
Yeah, I just thank God for your gift.
thank you.
Wow. And listen, you have been, first of all, you've been recording since that first CD.
Yes,
You have
close to 30,
Jesus.
maybe more.
Yes.
And that's just the stuff that I've done as a leader. That's not counting all the stuff I've done as a collaborator.
Now let's talk about, because I was listening to some of your music on Spotify.
Mhm.
You have songs that have well over 1 million streams.
Wow. Well, how come I'm
You
not driving
have-
a Rolls Royce?
You have over 58,000 monthly listeners.
That's nice to know.
How does that feel?
I like to know that people are listening.
Mhm.
That's all I care about. Are you listening?
Mhm.
Good. Keep listening.
Mhm.
It's nice to be appreciated.
Mhm.
You know, you might not always hear it. You might not always hear somebody say it to you,
Mhm.
but that lets me know people are listening.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah. So, and one thing that I do love that you never forget your roots. You always incorporate some type of gospel tune.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure. I think it was, what was it? When was it? 02, I believe, that you did the gospel album. The
Mercy and Grace.
Mercy.
That
and
sounds
Grace.
right.
Yeah.
2001 or 2.
What took you there?
I was very, very much on fire for the Lord.
Really?
And, you know, I really wanted to express that.
Okay.
And I made it my whole personality. That's kind of where I messed myself up. I made it my whole personality again, without a lot of critical thinking, just a good deal of dogma and indoctrination, and just not thinking for myself. And that's when I ran into a wall. But I believe those recordings were honest. They were genuine. That's where I was then. And I believe it manifests that way. But after allowing myself to think just for a few minutes, you know, and that was the part that I was always afraid of. And I think that's the thing that most Christians are afraid of. I think most Christians are afraid to think because they've been told this one thing all their lives. And it's all been rooted in fear and oppression. Oh, I don't want to go to hell. Oh, I don't want to get punished. Why don't you just read the Bible? Just try reading it. Really get inside of it. And then start thinking about, is this even possible? Does this even make sense? What today has manifested as a result of the story of Jonah in the whale? You really trying to tell me, so basically the story of Job is God and Satan had a bet? I beg your religious pardon? Excuse me? God won't put more on you than you can bear. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Oh, yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Yes, he absolutely will. So don't talk to me about, I mean, it's like, you know, and don't even get me started on Adam and Eve. Why was that tree even there? Explain it to me, please. Why was the tree there? And then the original sin. What was the first sin? The sin was eating the fruit. No, the sin was unbelief. No, the sin was disobeying God. They can't get it straight. All of a sudden they realized they were naked. Get out of here. Stop.
See, this is one reason why I'm so appreciative for this platform. The name of this is Gospel Diaries. And I'm so glad that you are sharing what's in your diary.
Thank you.
Because what
it's
you
in my diary.
And
what
you have
it's in my diary.
in your diary can bless other people. And I had
so.
to learn this a long time ago. What I have is not going to bless everyone in the world, but who I am sent for that's where I want to be. I want to be pleasing in my lane.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm so
And you
appreciative. Thank you.
You are.
I'm so appreciative that you're so candid and so frank.
Thank you
and
for giving me the
open.
platform. I appreciate you
Yeah.
giving me the opportunity.
Before we go to our music section, we have to talk about your collabs.
Okay.
Like, what are some of your favorite collabs?
Anything I've done with Wycliffe Gordon,
Mm-hmm.
wonderful trombone player. Wycliffe and I are kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm.
We're kindred souls, even soulmates
Mm-hmm.
musically. And I think I'm able to make a statement like that without it being pause. That's gay. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And I think we need to get out of the heteronormative idea of men not being able to express love for each other
Mhm.
that is both intimate and healthy and honest and genuine and not sexual.
Mhm.
The idea, Wycliffe and I, we are musical soulmates. He and I, we breathe the same way. We spent a lot of years on the road, tears and laughter and fighting and angry and having to, tune somebody up because they're getting ready to do something. You don't, it's like being in the trenches, like being in war. You're in the trenches with somebody day in, week in, month out. And we've had a lot of amazing musical moments, and we bring out the absolute best in each other, and we can do anything. We play funk, R&B, gospel, jazz, whatever it is. And he is by far the musician that I have vibed or gelled with in the most profound and effective ways. I've had some wonderful musical moments with a singer by the name of Mary Stallings. But on off the stage, it's like a hornet's nest. But once we're on stage, all the demons stay over there. She opens her mouth, I put my hand on the keys, and it's nothing but music and positive vibes. And then after that, it's insanity. I've had some wonderful moments with Paula West, another wonderful singer. I work well with singers. Wonderful moments with Henry Jackson. Henry Jackson and I have not had a lot of performance opportunities, and we're still trying to find, ways to record. And we like, he'll call me for this, I'll call him for that, but like just a full on performance with like the best quality situation, some really good money, some quality instruments. He's all warmed up, I'm all warmed up, got a good band, a good background ensemble. We haven't found that yet, but we're still working. He's got a lot of years left, I got a lot of years left. Yeah. So we're still trying to find that.
See, Henry Jackson is a crooner.
Absolutely.
So when you compose your songs, like, how do you title your songs?
That's always a nightmare. Unless it's a song that has lyrics, it's got to be something that some words, and it's like, sometimes I wish I could just
like bees. What is it? Bees knees.
Bees knees. Like, yeah, that was a play on words.
Okay.
Something like, what's it called? The cat's pajamas and the bees knees. It's like a whole term about, this guy's really, really great. Yeah, the cat's pajamas and the bees knees. But I don't even remember what that song even sounds like. But especially with a lot of jazz songs, you get these titles that are like, super cryptic and arcane. It's like, you get a song that's called, Feather Duster. And what the hell does that even mean? What are you talking about? Why is it called? So like I said, unless the song has lyrics, where there's an actual subject matter, I've got to sit and think about what this song reminds me of. Wow. Like, what do I feel? What do I hear when I'm listening to this song? And it's like, it's so emotional. There are no words. And so you wind up just choosing words or choosing an idea or a title that you think describes the song best. And it really doesn't. I mean, if I've got something, so that's a song called Out Late. It's like, I could have called it anything. But it's really, what does that even remind me of? First of all, it's in the key of A, which a lot of people don't play in. So I could have called it, messing around in A. You try to find tunes. You try to find song titles that are not corny, you know. But for me, it's just been a nightmare. I've never been good at it.
Wow.
Never been good at it.
Wow.
So.
Well, you still got years to go.
I
I
certainly
mean,
hope
you've
so.
been recording since, let's see.